May I request all the dignitaries on the dais to kindly take their seats? It gives me great pleasure to welcome you all on behalf of Industries Commissionerate, Government of Gujarat, Index B, KPMG and FICCI for this seminar on Gujarat, the preferred hub for defense production. We are honored to have with us the Honorable Raksha Mantri, Shri Manohar Parrikar ji, and Shri Rajnikant Patel, Honorable Minister for State for Home and Civil Defense, Government of Gujarat. May I now request Mr. Rajnikant Patel to kindly deliver the welcome address.
Honorable Minister of Defence, Shri Manohar Parrikar ji, Honorable distinguished guests, speakers, and dear friends. I am honored to welcome you all to this landmark conference on Gujarat, a preferred hub for defense production. I would like to congratulate organizers for getting together various stakeholders of society like private players, members of the civil society to deliberate on how the emerging economies like India can become self-dependent in defense sector. India's defense budget for the year 2013-14 has been announced as rupees 3,670 crore means US dollar 37.4 billion. This is good news for the industry as new investment will not only offer new growth opportunities but also lead to increased levels of modernization, the implementation of new technologies, and the passing of much needed reforms. The defense industry in India is poised and an inflection point in its expansion cycle driven by the modernization plans. The increased focus on homeland security and India's growing attractiveness as a home market defense sourcing hub. Government has put in place the building blocks to incentivize the growth of a domestic defense industry. Current ratio of India's defense procurement is as 70% from foreign sources, 30% from indigenous sources. Government of India is seeking to expand procurement through indigenous sources from the current 30% to the target 70% over the next decade. For India to realize its objective of building the military capabilities, it requires we need to develop a comprehensive industrialization strategy for defense. The news of offset will be a critical part of this strategy. I understand there could not be ready recipes or magic formulas on most effective initiatives, but I believe that an open and an informative discussion could be a step forward in finding the best ways. I invite all the speakers to this platform to share the way forward based on their experience. Once again, I on my behalf and on behalf of the state government, I am very thankful to the Honorable Union Minister Sri Manohar Parrikar ji for accepting our invitation to inaugurate this important seminar and deliver a keynote address. I also welcome all the speakers who have accepted the invitation to participate in this seminar and share knowledge and views of this important subject. I would like to thank the organizers and the esteemed audience for taking time from their busy schedule for this event. Your knowledge, experience, and ideas are highly valuable and shall take this initiative to new heights. I am sure that will be a very good deliberation, and as an outcome of this seminar, we will know about opportunities in this sector. The state government will be extremely happy to provide assistance to entrepreneurs who intend to set up project in Gujarat. I wish the seminar a grand success. Thank you very much. Vande Mataram, Jai Hind, Jai Jai Garvi Gujarat.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your welcome remarks and putting the issues in perspective. Before we proceed further, we will have a small welcoming ceremony. May I request Mr. R.J. Shah to kindly welcome the Honorable Minister. May I request Mr. G.I. Desai to kindly welcome Mr. Patel. May I request Mr. S.S. Suthar to kindly welcome Mr. Sanjay Garg. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, the defense sector has seen a lot of vibrancy in the past 8 months, and a lot has happened in terms of policy and regulatory decisions. It's led by the Honorable Raksha Mantri. May I now request the Raksha Mantri to kindly give his keynote address.
All dignitaries on the dais, all the participants. Let me first thank Gujarat Chief Minister and Gujarat government for having invited me here. I think being Gujarat, and as I know Gujarat and Gujaratis, they sense the business fast. Defense is on a threshold of changing lot many things, and Gujarat is one of the places which I will welcome to be part of defense production, make in India concept which has been put forward by our respected Prime Minister ji, to be the first one to do it, mainly because I think the environment here for industrialization is quite easy, quite fast and welcoming. Of course, I know the real difficulties. There may be good environment for industry, but defense has its own problem. There is only one customer. All of you are looking at me. Sometimes I feel whether I am the customer. There are so many channels and circles within circles in the defense procurement that probably no one knows who is the customer. The defense DPP 2000 procurement procedure 2013, I was trying to decode it. I'm using the word decoding because there are no clear-cut definitions. There is no clarity on how someone progresses. When there is only one customer, unless you have an attitude of giving guaranteed business on success, of course, and a commitment for it. I was just last 2 months, I was just there been for 2 months. And I realized that ministry is so vast that problems flood in from every side. Procurement is only one aspect of it. There are problems with cantonment board, there are problems with ordnance factories. There are 39 plus 2 of them. And to manage that, there are 52 labs, DRDO to handle. I am not talking about enemies, I am talking of friends. I am not talking of border. The public perception is completely different. The media sometimes asks me when there is a firing across border. It's actually meant by BSF. The question doesn't come to me. It should be addressed to Rajnath Singh ji because except the line of control, the international border is manned by paramilitary, para-forces. But people don't understand the difference. So they start firing questions at me. In fact, recently I had a problem of what is called as boat incident. And I thought of next time to send a videographer's team along with a spokesperson of, excuse me for it, Congress party along with, to first prove that they are terrorists before we act. I hope media takes some few things in lighter vein. But defense production and procurement is very important out of all the lot which exist because of 2 reasons. One, of course, is economic reason. 2,29,000 crores. I came from a state which had a budget of 10,000 crores. So I got elevated in 23 times in one shot. I come from a state, a chief minister of a state which has a 15 lakh, 1.5 million population. Today, as a defense, I handle 1.5 million armed forces, some 3 million retired armed forces, and you know the issues. I will not spell them out. There are so many issues pending, and we need to address them. That's important, one of the important, because ultimately while technology and guns or whatever way the defense equipments or platforms will help us in keeping our enemy at bay, the more important aspect of it, man behind the machine. If he is comfortable and motivated, I think a lot of things can happen differently. So that also 3 million there, plus ordnance factories, public sector undertaking, PSUs. So probably I am handling about 7-8 times more population than what I was handling in Goa. But defense procurement itself, through the capital route and through the revenue route, is almost more 1.25 lakh crores. It's huge. With, as Mr. Patel indicated, 70% relies on imports. I think for economic reason alone, the country can't afford it. 20 billion import is a huge amount. Just imagine this gets converted into mostly local business. How many employment we can generate? What will be the multiplier factor of the industry? And the most important part, while employment multiplier multiplying factor and foreign exchange are important, defense industry is one area, space and defense is one area which actually innovates concepts and technologies. Most of you may not know that internet originated from need of American Defense Forces. So many things came out of the space mission. Composites, lightweight material, energy efficient solar panels. Probably all these are output of a need for space mission or defense. Because every kilogram you carry heavy on a fighter, you lose 1 kilogram of a potential weapon and you lose probably 100 grams of fuel per hour. So it's very important that the high-end technology is a requirement of the defense, and therefore I consider the most in economic benefit is spillover of these technological innovations which becomes a part. But defense is equally important from strategic viewpoint. I can't depend on a foreign supplier because during the peacetime it's only practice. During the wartime, probably it becomes reality and many things can kick in. Your war wastage reserve. In defense when I went, the terminology used was quite different. They told me war wastage reserve. I thought initially wastage means खराब होता है मटेरियल, वो उसके बारे में बात कर रहे हैं. तो वो बोला कि नहीं खराब होता नहीं है, वॉर के लिए जो सामान रहता है यूज़ करते हैं, एम्यूनेशन एवरीथिंग इज कॉल्ड एज war wastage reserves. So wastage word is used in a different terminology. जो यूज करने वाला सामान बाजू में रखा है उसको वेस्टेज बोलते हैं. So that basically the terminology may be different, but strategically we cannot depend on imports because import will be governed by many factors. Import can be governed with factor with whom we are fighting, from where we are importing, and what are the relations of that country with the opponent we are fighting. So ultimately, strategy-wise, no country can depend entirely on import. Of course, some items will have to be imported. And therefore, defense procurement becomes a very important factor. I have been interacting with industry, and I realized that it is easier said than done. The current methodology of Make in India will never produce a real Indian company. We need to have a strategy where you can't have someone developing after spending crores, tens and hundreds of crores, then suddenly finding that a goalpost has been shifted, which is happening over last maybe 7-8 years. You decide you want this, and then suddenly after the person jumps into the water, the supports are taken off. And then they say that no, we don't want that. We want something different. That's called as shifting of the goalpost as you want. So, आप गोल नहीं मार सकते कभी. And therefore, I think we need a total conceptual and overhauling in thinking pattern of DPP. DPP 2030, the intentions are good. But intentions alone and wishes alone doesn't change the scenario. If wishes were horses, I don't want to complete further line. So wishes alone is not adequate. And therefore, we are in the process of working on all the aspects of defense procurement. And I'm quite sure that in next couple of months, maybe 3 months at the most, we should be able to produce a good document so that a state like Gujarat can couple its advantage with the government of India's innovative making policy. Make in India in the current form won't give much support to the industrial base on private lines for getting something developed in defense. It needs to be properly matched with the aspiration. I have a concept. Some of the concepts are in thinking process. Let me be very clear. These are not the decisions, because decisions will be taken after discussion, and unless you discuss, and sometimes you discuss in a open forum, you don't get feedbacks. Sometimes they create controversies, because some people think that whatever you put up the idea is a decision of the government. It's not. Let me be clear. What I'm saying is not a... But I have an idea where I say that by 2016, I identify a list of items in defense sector, and by 2016 or 17, declare that they are not to be imported. They have to be manufactured in India in next 3 years, 2 years, depending. Let the small scale sector take up some small items which are currently, but they are capable to be manufactured in India, and let them be produced here. After another 2 years, you add up more list to it. Obviously, this will have to be supported by a firm commitments from the government side, and I'm very sure that by February, March, we should be able to come out with a proper modified DPP 2015, which should resolve. And let me tell you one thing. Even after doing one round of exercise of correction, you can go on changing, modifying it further as difficulties develop in implementation of the same. It's never a static or a fixed norms. It can be modified further. I, for one, believe that transparency does not mean the paperwork. Transparency can be very simple in one paper. Transparency does not have to be converted into a complicated operation. So defense procurement and defense manufacturing probably is one area which can really drive the Make in India properly. And I congratulate Gujarat for having sensed it first and immediately included it as a major part. I have already had some discussions, and there are some advantages which you have. Vast areas, big areas which are required for checking, testing, defense this. I hope this seminar comes out with suggestions, and we are open at our end. And from my side, I can assure you that in next 2 or 3 months, you will have some document which will be, for a first time, welcoming a private sector without treating him as a... Government में एक होता है, कोई private आदमी कोई भी हो, when government sees a private individual, he thinks that ये चोर है. चोर निकल जाते हैं because they bribe and get affidavits. So when I became Chief Minister this time, I introduced all self-certification. I'll tell you, in self-certification, one of the biggest schemes where money is actually given to the people directly, we found after survey, 93% people to be honest. There is a Chief Minister Rozgar Yojana in Goa which I introduced, which talks about partnership by the state government. 50% of the capital is given by state government, interest-free, payable over a period of 10 years. So you get 50%. आपका 10 लाख का project है, 5 लाख state government से आपको मिलेगा. And I'll tell you, this particular loaning scheme is a more of a self-guaranteeing. Except the assets created out of the loan, no other guarantee is sought. It can go up to 50 lakhs maximum. It's mostly for new entrepreneurs and professionals also. And the repayment is one of the best. 89% timely repayment. This is the output of it. We have a scheme, when I was Chief Minister, I had introduced a scheme which was called as interest-free loan to the students. You could take loan and complete your post-graduation wherever you want. And then pay back after you complete your studies, after a gap of 1 year. Why I'm telling about these schemes is because I found that where you trusted people, the responses were good. We trusted people in that scheme also. Again, same way, only the parents sign, no document, girvi nahi, kuch nahi. Only signature is obtained from the parent and the student. And we have got 97% repayment. There is no manipulation. So I think it's time we trust industry, take them into confidence as equal partners, and work out a mechanism by which we can really make this country self-sufficient and contribute to this novel idea of Prime Minister Modi ji to make India a real manufacturing and industrial hub. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Very significant points raised on the table. No shifting of goalposts. Wishes are not enough. Action needed on the ground. Making India to be needed success through defense production. New DPP to be issued in the next 2-3 months. And private sector to be treated as an equal partner. I think this is very encouraging for industry, and I think industry will do its best to make up to your expectations. May I now request Mr. R.J. Shah to kindly propose a vote of thanks. Excuse me, ma'am. No questions, please.
Do it later on.
And may I also request all people to kindly switch off their cell phones or keep them in silent mode.
Thank you very much. Honorable Indian Defence Minister Sri Manohar Parrikar ji, our Minister Sri Rajnikant Bhai Patel, Mr. Garg, ladies and gentlemen, I am extremely happy to propose a vote of thanks on behalf of the state government in this inaugural function of the seminar. Sri Manohar Parrikar ji, who has been extremely busy, but still has agreed to our invitation and came for inauguration of this important seminar, which is a part of the Vibrant Gujarat Summit, and also delivered a keynote address. He has encouraged us by saying that the procurement process will be coming in 3 months and Gujarat to take a lead in Make in India slogan and with the defense, which has a very great potential. I thank you very much, sir. I also thank you, our Honorable Minister Sridhar Patel, who delivered a welcome address. With this, I request our other speakers to take over here. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Shah. Now we move on immediately to the session 1. And may I request Mr. Sanjay Garg to stay on the stage. Maybe request Honorable Minister and Raksha Mantri ji to come in the audience, please. And we'll immediately start the first session. Mr. Shah, if you could please escort the Raksha Mantri. We have a very excellent panel now comprising both industry and government and from the consulting side. And we hope to have some very, very interesting insights. To the speakers, we would request that we restrict our presentations exactly to 10 minutes. And we'll put it up and then. May we request everyone to take their seats, please? We'll immediately start the next session. We are running about 15 minutes late, and the Raksha Mantri also has to leave, so we would like to get started quickly. Can we also request the cameraman to please leave the stage now? And we also apologize to our friends who couldn't get a seat. We know this is a very interesting session. Clearly, we underestimated the interest level, so our apologies on behalf of the organizers. On the dais, we have Mr. Sanjay Garg, IAS and Joint Secretary, Ministry of Defense, Mr. Somendra Yamdagni, Member Personnel from the Ordnance Factory Board. We have Dr. Sudarshan Kumar, Distinguished Scientist and Chief Controller, R&D at DRDO. Mr. Lars Olof Lindgren, Chairman and Managing Director, Saab India. Before that, for 5 years, he was also the Swedish Ambassador to India. Mr. Pratyush Kumar, Dr. Pratyush Kumar, President of Boeing India and Chairperson of the FICCI Civil Aviation Committee. We have Dheeraj Mathur, ex-IAS, partner and leader of the National Aerospace and Defense Practice at PwC. And, excuse me, can we have the stage clear, please? And we have Mr. Ajay Shah as the session moderator. We'll begin with Mr. Sanjay Garg. My humble request from the organizers is that we restrict our presentations or discussion to just about 10 minutes. And we'll keep the focus, given your vast experience, we would request the eminent speakers to just share their insights and suggestions, both for the government, state government, Gujarat, central government, and the industry. And restrict us to just the insights and the recommendations. Maybe invite Mr. Sanjay Garg, please. Can we have a round of applause, please? Thank you so much.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I first of all welcome my panel members on the dais and present representatives of the industry. I think Honorable Defense Minister has already set the tone for this seminar, and the macro level policy, how the private industry is going to be encouraged in the procurement as well as in the overall Make in India program has been clearly initiated by the Honorable Raksha Mantri. Now this session of this seminar is basically, I think, on the nut bolts. What are the difficulties, what are the opportunities, what are the recent policy initiatives which have been taken by the government, which are underway, and in what direction we are supposed to move, and how the investment and technology flows into the sector. As Honorable Raksha Mantri has already clearly spelled out that for the defense sector, Make in India or domestic manufacturing is rather a necessary imperative rather than a choice, both for strategic as well as economic reasons, because it not only saves the foreign exchange, but also it addresses the national security concerns. So several times this intention of the government has been reflected in various policy statements. The DPP or Defense Procurement Procedure 2013 clearly spells out the preference to procurement from Indian manufacturers in the Buy Indian or Buy and Make Indian categories of acquisition over Buy Global. However, this intention has been clearly reflected. And if you see the last 6 months, especially after the new government has come in, if you see the figures of last 6 months of procurement cases, major procurement cases, if I can give you a ballpark figure, which may not be quoted anywhere, but out of about 75,000 crores of AONs granted by DAC for various procurement cases, about 65,000 crores of procurement cases have been categorized either under Buy Indian or Buy and Make Indian. So the intention of the government towards the policy of indigenization and self-reliance and promoting the Indian industry is clearly reflected there. Can I just go to the first slide, please? No. Yeah. Let me just start with the existing position. Where are we now? And to the backdrop, to set the perspective, we have third largest armed forces with a defense budget of about $38 billion, out of 40% is for capital acquisition. One of the largest importers of defense goods, which the figure of 70% of direct import is not correct, which was said earlier in the discussion. Actually, our direct import is about 35-40% only. About 65-70% is procured from the Indian industries, but that 65-70% also has about 40-50% import content. So if you look at the direct import is around 35-40%, but if you look at the total import content, which is around 60-65%. The defense industrial base, apart from 9 public sector undertakings, there are 41 ordnance factories with a production value of around $8 billion. Apart from the large public sector presence, since 2001, the sector has been opened up for the private sector participation, and we have several large companies present in the defense sector, apart from a few hundred small and medium manufacturers who are in the supply chain of public sector undertakings or with the ordnance factories or with the large private sector manufacturers. There are about 30 to 33 foreign direct investment proposals have also been approved, which many of them have not yet fructified, but they are on paper. The aspirations is that India wants to establish itself as a global defense and aerospace manufacturing hub with an objective of self-reliance and indigenization, with a strong R&D base and robust ecosystem for private sector, public sector to flourish together. In the recent past, especially after the new government has come in, since May 2014, we have tried to address several issues related to the private sector entry into the defense sector. As far as procurement policy is concerned, I have already mentioned, and Honorable Minister has also mentioned, that there is a preference to buy Indian and make Indian categories of acquisition, which gives an opportunity to the Indian industry to make investment and plan their R&D investments. The licensing policy has been liberalized. Earlier, even for small parts and component nut bolts manufacturer related to defense also used to take license. Now, most of the parts, components, subsystems, sub-assemblies, where most of the small and medium manufacturers are involved, those items have been delicensed, so they no longer require an industrial license for manufacturing. FDI policy has been reviewed, and FDI is now allowed up to 49%. More than this revision of the cap, I would say, there are a lot of intricate details which were creating a lot of problem in the FDI policy. For example, FII was not allowed earlier, single largest shareholder to have 51% shareholding. All those things have been ironed out in the revised policy, and now the present policy of FDI is much more cleaner and clearer in terms of no ambiguities. Offset guidelines have been revised in 2013, where the avenues and the time period, etc., for discharge have been reviewed and revised. Multiplier have been introduced for SMEs. Security manual for the defense industries has, for the first time, has been put on the website, so that there is a clarity in the industry to what kind of security architecture they have to follow while undertaking manufacturing for the defense systems. Our domestic industry cannot sustain without export, because the domestic demand will not be sufficient enough to make the industry viable. So this intention also government has made clear by issuing a separate defense exports strategy, and we are also in the process of setting up a separate export promotion body, and the process of issuing clearances for export, NOCs for export, has been further simplified, and exporters of parts, components and subsystems now no longer require end user certificate from the government. So this is a very great help, very great kind of simplification in the export regulation. Make procedure is under revision, and it is at the final stages of the approval. Maybe in couple of weeks or months time it will come out. It has been designed after a lot of consultation with the industry. Now, apart from whatever has been done, there are a lot of things which are underway and which the results will come in another coming weeks or coming months. Like as Honorable Minister said, defense procurement procedure is under revision, is being simplified and being made time-bound, predictable. Defense offset policy is under streamlining and further ironing out of the difficulties being faced there. We are also in the process of setting up a defense export and investment promotion body, so that sitting in the ministry, it becomes sometimes difficult to coordinate export and other things. So on the lines of export promotion council for various sectors, we are mulling over setting up a defense export promotion body. In the Union Budget 2014-15, Honorable Finance Minister has announced a technology development fund for supporting R&D in the industry and research institution. This is also a scheme has been formulated and it is gone for the approval. And in the coming weeks, this technology development fund, which will provide resources to industry as well as to academic and research institutions for the collaborative research, is also being introduced. Then apart from that, a few major projects are being identified to be undertaken under MAKE, once the MAKE procedure comes reviewed. So therefore, so that a critical mass in the industry is generated and the R&D is encouraged through collaboration. Now, this is my last slide. This basically, why should one invest in the defense sector in India? This is what kind of opportunities and what is the market available and what kind of policies are available. If we roughly estimate based on the growth of the budget, approximately $130 billion is to be spent in next 7 to 8 years in the modernization of our armed forces. And with the clear preference and thrust on Make in India, Buy Indian, and Buy and Make Indian, this entire, almost, if not entire, at least 80-90% of this has to go to the Indian industry in some sense or the other. So therefore, this is the kind of market in the short term, that is 7 to 8 years horizon. The offset obligations, where the foreign OEMs have to source component parts and subsystems from the Indian industry, about 5 billion, sorry, this is a mistake, it is not million, it is billion. About 5 billion US dollar offset obligations are there, which are to be discharged by the foreign companies. So these components, parts, systems will have to be manufactured within the Indian industry to be procured. Then for the tie-ups and for the facilities for the foreign investors, there is the presence of large conglomerates and specialized companies in various sectors. Then liberal licensing and FDI policy, which I have already stated, defense export strategy with focus on export promotion. And we already have a strong track record in the public sector industries in naval systems, land vehicles, and missile systems. And of course, again, demographic dividend, what we call is the large pool of cost-effective human resource. India has second highest number of engineering graduates. Thank you. So this was the just brief recap of what policies have undergone change and what are the initiatives underway and what are the kind of opportunities in the sector. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mr. Garg. I think those were very encouraging words, and a simple indication is the fact that this room is absolutely jam-packed. We have no seating space, and apologies again to friends who are standing, apologies from the organizers. Without wasting any further time, and thank you also for completing exactly on time, exactly on 10 minutes. That sets the tone for the rest of the speakers. Okay, next we have Mr. Somendra Yamdagni, member personal from the Ordnance Factory Board. Would you like to use the presentation, sir, or be great if you can?
Speak from there?
Sure, will be fantastic. And we would just humbly request you to just share your observations, insights, and recommendations. Thank you.
Honorable Raksha Mantri, Shri Manohar Parikar, distinguished dignitaries present on dais and in front rows, all the delegates, participants, ladies, gentlemen. I have a small presentation. I am representing Ordnance Factory Board. I am member in Ordnance Factory Board. This is a small presentation. This gives details about ordnance factories, and we also discuss about opportunities for private sector participation in the presentation. The first slide here shows the location of the factories. We have 41 ordnance factories. As you can see, they are spread all over the country. To give you an idea about the products that we are manufacturing, basically products for defense forces, as you can see, guns, tanks, and ammunition. These are just the representative figures. Now, Ordnance Factory Board, value-wise, is 47th largest organization as per SIPRI. Turnover is roughly US dollar 2.5 billion, and we manufacture the items required by the defense forces. And recently, after 2006, we have started in-house R&D at a large scale. We have testing facilities, and of course, manufacturing is our core activity. We had a meeting with Honorable Raksha Mantri after he had taken over, and these were the three thrust areas which were identified by him. Currently, our level of production is around 11,200 crores. And in 3 years' time, we are aiming to achieve 20,000 crores. This represents roughly 90% of increase, which will translate about 25 to 26% per year. Apart from this ambitious target, there is a need for improving quality, safety, and reliability, particularly for the ammunition products. This we are giving due attention, and necessary directions have already been given to various factories, and we are sure that we will achieve these targets. Another third important decision which has been taken is shifting from non-core to core activities, because that is the only way we can achieve this 20,000 crore in 3 years. So we will be getting out slowly from the non-core areas and entering into the core areas, thereby freeing up our resources and redeploying them in core activities. This will help us in achieving the target with more and more private sector participation. As I mentioned, we started R&D from 2006. Prior to that, we were basically a manufacturing organization. We currently have 11 ordnance design centers. As a result, various products have been developed, which are listed here. These two of the main products are Dhanush and this bi-modular charge system. Roughly 10% of the value currently comes from indigenously developed products. As I mentioned, these are the photographs for Dhanush and bi-modular charge. These are some of the other items.
That's changing.
Some of the future products that we are planning to be making in future are, these are all Make in India categories, Smarch rocket, Pinaka, and these ammunition, plus carbine and assault rifle. Our level of indigenization is quite high. It varies from 58% to 87%. Even in initial stages where we have developed indigenously Dhanush system, indigenization level has reached 81%. With the philosophy that I mentioned earlier, when we shift from non-core activities to core activities, private sector outsourcing is expected to increase from 44% to 55%, but this will happen gradually over a period of 3 years' time, and we will be providing all the required hand-holding to the private sector.
Mr. Yamdagni, sorry to interrupt. We just got 3 more minutes to go. So if you could just share some of your suggestions for the Honorable Raksha Mantri and for the Government of Gujarat and the private sector, it will be fantastic. We've got 3 more minutes to go, please.
Yeah, I'm just coming to that. See, this is the level of items we are currently taking from the private sector. The contribution of items that have been outsourced versus the issue, this is what figure I was talking, 44% it stands currently, which is likely to go up to 55% in a course of about 3 years. Then there are certain more items which have been identified, some future technologies that we are looking for, and we are looking for suitable partners also to jointly co-produce these items based on these technologies. Then broad categories of item. Currently we are procuring, and only the quantum is going to increase in future due to shifting from non-core activities to core activities. These are the items, basically forgings, castings, finished components, raw materials. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Yamdagni. There are a lot of opportunities there for the private sector to collaborate with you. We'll now move to Mr. Lars Olof Lundgren. Maybe now request you to come and share your insights. Mr. Lundgren is the Chairman and Managing Director of Saab India, and he was earlier also served as the Swedish Ambassador to India for 5 long years. He's just about to complete 8 years in India. Lars, you'll almost become a Make in India now. Huh?
Honorable Defense Minister, Mr. Parrikar, colleagues at the dais, dignitaries, ladies and gentlemen, friends. Of course, I'm pleased to be here, but above all, I'm very honored to have been asked to address this seminar. I'm also very glad to be back in Gujarat. During my time as ambassador of Sweden to India, I had occasions to come here to assist in inaugurations of plants of Swedish companies here. That is what an ambassador often do. And it's a very pleasant job, actually, because you see by that you increase the relations between, in this case, Gujarat and Sweden. I have been listening to so many interesting speeches and presentations today, and even if I try to follow it very carefully, I realize perhaps it doesn't go for you, but for me, I tend to forget after a while what people have said. So therefore, to make it easy for you, I would like to say there are three things I want you to bring back of what I have said at this seminar. The first thing is, I truly believe that Make in India is right for India. That is not very controversial. Second is, I truly believe that to create and develop an Indian indigenous defense industry is right for India. And third, which might be controversial, I think to make in India and to develop an indigenous Indian defense industry is good for international defense companies. At least if I talk for my company, Saab, we feel this is very good for us. So how do I come to these things? Well, I don't need to argue very much in this group why Make in India is good for India. I've seen some voices questioning this concept, but most agree. And I feel this is the only way to rapidly and substantially increase the manufacturing sector of India. Is the only way, actually, for India to come to grips with its large challenges ahead of itself. And not least, the big challenge of employing, let's say, between 10 and 12 million people entering the labor force every year. This is totally necessary, there's no doubt. Why is it right for India to develop its own defense industry? That's also pretty self-evident. First, all the advantages of Make in India is also present here, to have more manufacturing. But also because defense manufacturing is also often very high-tech oriented. So if India starts to produce more of its needs for its armed forces, it will automatically bring in more technology also to India. So that is an extra plus. Second, of course, it's good for a country to have, I mean, defense products is not any product. It's also linked to strategic and security policy considerations. And the country would need to have control over that. I can take an example of my own country, Sweden. Just before the Second World War, we needed defense material. We put out orders for airplanes in 1935 or so. But the country said, we don't want to sell to you. First, we need to first think of our own Air Force. We have to produce for ourselves. And second, they didn't tell us that, but I can think that they might have thought that Sweden is a country with such bad defense, so perhaps if we deliver these planes to them, they will be occupied, and then the enemy will get the planes. So we decided in 1935-36 to develop our own indigenous production of airplanes. And that is how the company I represent started. And after that, we have bought up other Swedish companies. So we have consolidated the Swedish defense market to a large extent. But we know, we understand why India has this desire. Because even if today the international companies stand waiting at the door to sell to India, this can very rapidly change. And there is a full understanding on our part that some strategic material should be produced in your own country, especially for a country like India with its special security policy situation. Then you have the time factor. If you make and develop and design your own products, you can do it much faster. Today, when you do procurements, first you say it should be proven technology, proven material, which means that what you're looking at is already on the market. Second, the procedure to procure it takes, it isn't fast, I can inform that. It takes many years to get that process done. And then after that, you need to produce and to deliver. So when the material comes to the Indian Armed Forces, it is already, if not old, on the verge of being old. So if you have it in-house, you can, of course, get much more modern, efficient material. Of course, there is a challenge to this. If this would have been easy, it would have been done already. But the Indian Armed Forces need, of course, to get the latest technologies and the most high-tech products. And that is not very easy to accomplish. The only way to do that, in my view, is to start partnerships with companies that have that technology and companies that are willing to form partnerships to share that technology. And that's why I say it's good also for international defense companies with the Indian decision to build up its own defense capability. To do this, partnership and all that, it's easy to say too. Of course, it takes a lot of work and a lot of problems to solve and all that. But for those who are willing to do that on both sides, I think the benefits are enormous. So if I speak for my company, we are willing to take that hard work, take that challenge to start working with Indian partners to produce in India. And finally, well, when I say this, I must say that that company must have the international company must, and the government behind it, must have its own interest to do that. It must be in their own self-interest to take that step. Otherwise, it's very difficult for a company to agree to share its technology to that extent that is needed. And in order to do that, they have to share technology in a totally different way than just sending kits and a screwdriver and tell the manufacturing plant in India how to screw it together. It has to be a total and a genuine transfer of technology. And that is very different from what is happening today. Let me end with that was the three things I said you had to remember, if you remember. Make in India is good to develop. India develops its own indigenous defense industry is good, and it's good also for the international companies. The fourth is that to make in India is, of course, not an abstract thing. It doesn't take place in a vacuum. It has to take place in real life. And in real life, we have states in India. And in order to realize Make in India, we have to see that the states support and drives this. And therefore, I'm so happy to be in Gujarat, because what I saw when I was here as ambassador is still true. It's a state with good infrastructure, a good attitude to companies setting up, and you all know this, setting up plants and all that. So it makes it so much easier. Now my 10 minutes are out, but I would like to just say that Gujarat is a good place to make in India and to make defense products in India. Thank you very much.